The new chapter of Dragon Ball Super with the new saga has started and brought Bardock back. Come with me and I'll show you this new chapter. So without further ado, let's go. The crimson sky of planet Vegeta seemed to foretell the end. Bardock, a low-class warrior but with an unyielding spirit, was returning from a mission with clenched fists and a soul in conflict. He had received confidential information. Frieza was plotting something big. The Emperor of the Universe could no longer tolerate the growth of the Saiyans, and according to rumors gathered from his recent battles, a devastating attack was coming. Bardock's heart tightened with every step he took towards the city center. The people celebrated, unaware that death was lurking for everyone. With no time to lose, Bardock burst into the chamber where his wife, Jean, was taking care of little Kakarot. She looked at him in shock, seeing him arrive in a hurry with wide eyes. Bardock quickly explained everything. He said Frieza would destroy the planet and everyone on it. Jean doubted for a moment, but the tone in his voice left no room for questions. The only way to guarantee the future was to send their son to a distant, safe planet. Earth was a low-class planet with weak beings, the perfect place for the baby to survive and grow. With tears in her eyes, Jean placed little Kakarot in the space pod. Bardock touched the pod before it launched, his gaze firm but melancholic. The son he barely knew would be his people's last hope, even if he would never know it. The pod was launched into space, tearing through the night sky with its silvery glow. Bardock watched until the point of light disappeared. Then, with a locked jaw and a heart burning with fury, he flew into the sky. There, among the stars, Bardock faced Frieza's army alone. The soldiers were easily defeated, but then he appeared, Frieza, hovering over a colossal sphere of energy that seemed to contain an entire sun. Bardock didn't hesitate. He attacked with everything he had, his ki exploding in flames around his body, but it was useless. Frieza smiled with contempt and launched the sphere. The last image burned into his retina was the glare of death engulfing the entire sky, and then darkness. But something broke the cycle of destruction. At the exact moment before the explosion consumed everything, a figure shrouded in purple light appeared beside Bardock. A touch, and both disappeared. When Bardock awoke, his body was sore, and the air around him was different. He stood up with difficulty and looked around. A strange planet stretched out before his eyes, with organically shaped structures, peaceful-looking beings, and a mystical aura. A planet that vaguely resembled the tales of ancient warriors, planet Yardrat. In the days that followed, Bardock was cared for and fed by beings he barely understood. One of them, an old man with a serene expression and a ki as calm as a lake, revealed himself to be his savior. Bardock asked why he had been saved. The Yardrat replied with a simplicity that left him silent. The Yardrat said, quote, "A divine ki guided me to you. A silent call that echoed through the universe, asking for you to be preserved." End quote. Bardock was suspicious. He didn't believe in divinities, only in a warrior's strength. But he decided to stay and learn. Time would teach him. Years passed on planet Yardrat. Bardock trained like never before. He learned to expand his mind, master his internal ki, and most importantly, he learned instant transmission. It was the only way to ensure he would never again be late to protect those he loved. With time, his mind also opened up. He began to reflect on the paths of destiny. Maybe that divine ki was real, or maybe the universe had its own will. Then, during a deep meditation, he felt something, a familiar ki, Frieza. He was on planet Cereal. The memory of what he had heard in recent times came back. Frieza had passed through there in search of something mysterious, but Bardock didn't know exactly what. Without hesitation, Bardock used instant transmission and arrived at the planet in a matter of seconds. But it was already too late. Frieza had left, leaving only destruction and a dark trail. Frustration overcame Bardock. He had failed again. He allowed the past to repeat itself. Still, he didn't stop. 2 years had passed since his arrival on planet Cereal. During this time, he wandered the universe, seeking information, traces, anything that would lead him to the Emperor who had destroyed his home. And then, on a silent night, Bardock felt that ki again, powerful, malevolent, distorted. But this time, it wasn't just the Frieza he remembered, it was something bigger, denser, colder, a ki that brought death and darkness, but still carried the same core. With a slight smirk, Bardock stood up and clenched his fists. Finally, he wasn't late anymore. With instant transmission, Bardock crossed galaxies in an instant, and when he opened his eyes, the sky in front of him was golden, dense, and sacred. The planet of the god of destruction, Beerus. And there he was, Frieza, but he wasn't the same. His body was covered in a shimmering black tone, and his ki crushed the very reality around it. In front of him, 2 warriors were giving it their all. Goku and Vegeta, his blood and race, were facing the entity now known as Black Frieza. Bardock remained silent on top of a floating rock, observing the scene. His eyes were fixed on the villain he hated so much, and for the first time in a long time he felt that the time for his revenge had come. The golden sky of Beerus's planet trembled with the collision of enormous energies. Frieza, in his black form, hovered with a cruel smile on his lips as he conjured a ray of concentrated black energy, ready to exterminate Goku and Vegeta. Both, even at their peak, Goku with the serene and instinctive glow of perfected Ultra Instinct and Vegeta enveloped in the chaotic fury of Ultra Ego, were on their knees exhausted, their bodies wounded, their breathing heavy, their eyes wide with helplessness. The final blow was about to be delivered. But before the energy was fired, a figure shrouded in a dark cloak appeared like lightning out of nowhere. A precise kick hit Frieza's face, interrupting his concentration and throwing him dozens of meters away, through a chain of floating rocks and creating an explosion in the background. The impact echoed across the entire planet. Goku and Vegeta, stunned, looked up. In front of them, amid the dust and the crackling rays of energy, was a hooded man, silent, imposing, with a ki that made them tremble. Goku wondered who that warrior could be, while Vegeta, frowning, pondered if it could be his long-lost brother Tarbell. There was something familiar in the air, something ancestral. The hooded man said nothing, just clenched his fists. Then, a golden aura exploded around him, causing the winds to swirl violently. His body was taken over by the transformation, the Super Saiyan. But it wasn't just any Super Saiyan, it was raw, primitive, and at the same time pure, as if it had been forged in the heat of 1,000-year-old revenge. Vegeta's eyes widened. That man's ki, it was similar to Kakarot's. Almost identical but wilder, more violent. It was at that moment that the hooded warrior, wrapped in golden flames, pointed at Frieza with a piercing stare. He declared in a grave voice that Frieza would pay for what he did to planet Vegeta. Red lightning began to appear around his aura, crackling in violent bursts. It was as if space itself vibrated with the concentrated fury of that forgotten soul. In an instant, he disappeared from sight. Frieza, still recovering from the kick, didn't even have time to react. The hooded man appeared in front of him, his fist already charged with a destructive impact. A punch was delivered, brutal and precise, hitting the center of Frieza's chest and launching him against the ground with such force that the planet's surface was torn into craters and fissures. The battle that followed was a spectacle of pure contained fury and refined technique. Frieza, even in his black form, was surprised by his opponent's speed. The hooded man fought like an experienced warrior, but there was something more. His movements had purpose, pain, and history. He knew every one of Frieza's patterns, every pause, every hesitation. Frieza unleashed a barrage of energy attacks, black beams that sliced through the air like spears. The hood briefly flew off in the wind, but his face still remained in shadow. With supernatural agility, Bardock dodged every blow, reappearing to the side, above, below, as if his presence were a nightmare haunting Frieza's instincts. Then came the counterattack. Bardock grabbed Frieza's arm during a blow and spun him violently, launching the tyrant against a floating cliff that collapsed on impact. Before Frieza could even get up, the Saiyan reappeared, delivering a sequence of punches so fast that light bent around the impacts. Each punch carried the pain of the past. Each blow was a scar from the destroyed clan. Frieza tried to maintain his composure, but blood began to gush. His attacks became more desperate. He roared in fury and launched a compressed energy sphere directly at his opponent's chest. But Bardock absorbed the impact with his arm and counterattacked with a knee to the stomach, which made the tyrant spit up blood. The battle spread across the planet's skies with explosions that shook the divine clouds and destabilized the ki of Goku and Vegeta, who watched in silence, still not understanding who this warrior was. With each passing moment, the mystery only grew. His power, it wasn't normal. It was as if he had returned from the ashes of an extinction. Bardock finally pinned Frieza against the ground with a concentrated ki blast, immobilizing him for a brief instant. With his enemy agonizing and bleeding, the hooded warrior hovered in the air, looking down. His eyes burned, his aura fluctuated between gold and red, and it was at that moment, as Frieza lay wounded on the ground, coughing up blood and trying to get up, that Bardock declared, with all the rage he had held for decades, he would pay for everything he had done to planet Vegeta, and the sky, for a moment, seemed to tremble in silence. Wounded and humiliated, Black Frieza still found the strength to escape. With a ki blast to push Bardock away, he staggered back and activated his communicator. His black ship, hidden in the shadows of one of Beerus's smaller moons, descended quickly to the battlefield, creating a storm of wind and dust. Before Bardock could reach him to finish the fight, Frieza jumped inside the ship and disappeared into the sky with absurd speed, leaving only dark trails and a heavy silence in the air. With the turbulence of the fleeing ship, a gust of wind lifted Bardock's hood, finally revealing his full face. Goku's eyes immediately widened. It was like looking at an aged reflection of himself. Vegeta was also stunned, trying to process the sight before him, but it was Goku who took a step forward, remembering the scouter he had seen on planet Cereal, the hologram that showed Bardock's face saving Granola. With tears in his eyes, Goku murmured, almost in disbelief, he called Bardock his father. Bardock looked into Goku's eyes, emotional but still maintaining his firm posture. He said he hadn't seen him since he was just a baby and that seeing the man his son had become filled him with pride. The two approached and without words embraced, a moment that time had never allowed until then. Vegeta watched in silence, clearly surprised and disconcerted by the whole revelation. Whis, with a serene smile, commented that he didn't expect to see Mr. Bardock alive. Vegeta, with his arms crossed and his voice grumpy, grumbled that Whis probably knew about it for a long time. The moment was brief but intense. Goku pulled away from the hug and, with a renewed energy, said that now they could defeat Frieza together as father and son, as Saiyans. Bardock nodded with a slight smile on his face, accepting the invitation with the sparkle of determination in his eyes. And so, amid the skies still lit by the traces of battle, the new chapter of this war began, with a bond restored and a revenge that now would no longer be faced alone. This new phase of the Dragon Ball story with the Black Frieza saga promises to be one of the most epic ever told. The presence of the villain in his most menacing, cruel, and powerful form yet already raises the tension to unprecedented levels, but what really turned everything upside down was the return of Bardock. A warrior presumed dead, now trained by the Yard Rats, mastering instant transmission, and evolved as never before. His return not only rewrites the past but also reopens old wounds that were dormant in the heart of the Saiyan universe. The fact that Bardock is alive is, in itself, a bombshell event. But more than that, his revelation as Goku's savior and now as a direct ally against Frieza creates a very strong emotional link in the narrative. The connection between father and son has never been explored so intensely, and now it becomes the emotional center of a saga full of titanic confrontations and decisions that can change the fate of the universe. Seeing Bardock fighting alongside Goku and Vegeta is something that fans have always dreamed of, and now it has finally become real. The arc promises not only incredible battles, but also dramatic and meaningful moments. The question of what Bardock has lived through all this time, how he dealt with his survival, and what else he may have discovered about the universe still hangs in the air, and more importantly, how far can he still evolve? This new phase of the Dragon Ball story with the Black Frieza saga promises to be one of the most epic ever told. The presence of the villain in his most menacing, cruel, and powerful form yet already raises the tension to unprecedented levels, but what really turned everything upside down was the return of Bardock. A warrior presumed dead, now trained by the Yard Rats, mastering instant transmission, and evolved as never before. His return not only rewrites the past but also reopens old wounds that were dormant in the heart of the Saiyan universe. The fact that Bardock is alive is, in itself, a bombshell event. But more than that, his revelation as Goku's savior and now as a direct ally against Frieza creates a very strong emotional link in the narrative. The connection between father and son has never been explored so intensely, and now it becomes the emotional center of a saga full of titanic confrontations and decisions that can change the fate of the universe. Seeing Bardock fighting alongside Goku and Vegeta is something that fans have always dreamed of, and now it has finally become real. The arc promises not only incredible battles, but also dramatic and meaningful moments. The question of what Bardock has lived through all this time, how he dealt with his survival, and what else he may have discovered about the universe still hangs in the air, and more importantly, how far can he still evolve? But comment on what you thought of all this, and don't forget to like. Thank you all very much for your support, and until next time.